Hello and welcome to Rampant Pyanodon Season 6, Episode 8. Last episode, we started the first half of the pre-metallurgic processes. That is the processes we need in order to get started with basic plate production. So we washed borax and created sand and creosote. This episode, we're going to wrap it up with salt into hot air, and we're going to start with sand casting. As you can already see, due to the fact that I wanted to kick off the episode running, and not because I accidentally deleted a bunch of B-roll footage, we are already straight into creating the sand casting. As a part of my Rail System 2.0 initiative, I basically start the first 30 to 45 minutes of the build by creating two new types of station. It is the mixed solid fluid requester for B and L trains with a fluid provider on the other side. And then I realized that this station is supposed to be providing a solid, so I had to make a mixed solid fluid requester with solid provider instead. I abused the Bob's cranes and Bob's adjustable inserters to finally find a good spot, for the 70k unit tanks to slot between, and I'm honestly surprised how everything was able to fit in there so nicely. It's very nice and compact. Some of my recent builds have featured production blocks where each of the inputs goes in its own set of machines and into its own set of outputs, but I've realized that if any of them were ever to get altered, like the quantities, it could very easily get to a point where the train system the production block jams. Like if the top requester always feeds, the top requester goes to the system and then feeds the top provider, and the bottom one always goes to the bottom, the middle, and the second and fourth to the second and fourth. If I accidentally take some items from a spot or jams or something gets deleted or destroyed, then the system could jam. Generally I favor kind of mixing all the inputs and outputs so this doesn't happen again. The mass splitter balancers were not necessary, but for this build, since it seemed like it was going to be relatively small, I decided to keep them. So I have a 5-3 feeding the sand into the tar processors, and then a 3-5 feeding the sand casting back from the processors into the train station. This is a single train station build, which is really neat. I don't think I have any of those yet. But otherwise, the build was quite straightforward. It's the first build in a long time with no excess byproducts, producers, or excess, just excess in general. It's simply 45 sand per second and a 180 creosote per second in, and then 18 sand casting per second out. I make sure to use pie cranes because they're UPS efficient, and also because I like them, and I'm finally able to jam some Hawats in there. And there's another 30 minutes of footage that's missing because I thought I was going to make some final adjustments here and there, and of course, it just kept taking a long time. So this is sand casting. We can go ahead and bring this into the world with Alright, so this is usually where I zoom in and appreciate my build, but instead I spend the next hour and a half fixing my rail system. So I tried to fix it last time by adding in a fake buffer to the inserters of my multi-sushi stations, namely the Alaska Roll and some of the other output stations, to make it seem like they were fuller than they were, and I didn't have to risk a full train leaving items in the inserter's hands to mess up the next train. But the trains never actually fill because it thinks it's full, or the inserters think it's full, so it never leaves the station. So I did a lot of tinkering, and I'm giving you the abridged version of what I've decided to do. What I decided to do is lower all thresholds to 95 stacks instead of 100, and then add a buffer of 120 items to each load. That is, if I want 5k of an item like raw coal, now I want 5k minus 120, which is 4880. 120 is the number of items that can possibly fit in all inserters' hands at once for my biggest station. So if I have 20 inserters that can hold 6 items each, that is about 120 items. And so now my trains should never really overfill. Well, they will overfill, but they won't overfill to the point where the inserters have items left in their hands to mess up the next train. Lastly, this is the saddest change, but at this point I'm sick of redoing my rail system so much, so I made it so that inserters can only request exactly 1 train's worth of items. This is because there is no request limit. So if I want 10k of an item, which is like 2 trains worth of something, I can't just subtract 120 from 10k for 9880, because then it'll send for 5k. So now all my solid stations can grab exactly 1 train order at a time. And of course this will cause some throughput issues. Obviously it'll be smaller, but then I don't have to think about which ones and which sushi stations, and if I add a sushi station in the future. It's just a nice blanket fix, you know, 95 stacks for all items, and then just subtract 120 for what you want. And it's 120 because yeah, that's how many items that we can hold. And it's 95 stacks because the smallest stack size we have, and we should probably have on the system, is a stack size of 50. So that is about 3 stack sizes. I did leave 2 stack sizes extra just in case, I don't know, just because 95 is a better number than 96 or 97. But now my solid stations can only order 1 train at a time, which obviously has throughput issues because a train will come and it'll unload, and then, you know, it'll take forever to reload and unload. Right? Usually if you call 2 trains at once, it'll just kind of perpetually be full. But, oh well. And as part of the reason this took a long time was because I was like, oh, I'm so comfortable with combinators now. And I kind of I jam a bunch of random little combinators here and there for special mix stations that I messed up, like the mixed provider stations and like requester types that shouldn't really exist and fit outside the system. I use combinators to patch it up, but I have to catch all those and kind of work them out on a case-by-case basis. So there's a lot of trial and error, took a very long time, and a lot of unclogging for a lot of stations. Lastly, I spent like 30 minutes on the Bento box. The last 30 minutes of it was working on the Bento box Mark III. I changed the logic, right, because I said, oh, I can't just request 10k because then it'll, you know, just request 1 train's worth of items. My Bento box is doing something like requesting 9,000 of an item, so not even like 2 trains worth. It'll be like 300 trains worth or something because it's a storage container. But I just did a quick little circuit thing. So now it'll always ask for the maximum of 1 train minus 120. So for example, if I want like 10k of an item, basically I just always ask for 97 stacks, which ends up being, but just like I ask for 97 stacks. I have stack combinators, so 97 stacks is actually a lot easier to do. So basically, like if I want 10k stacks, instead I will just request 97 stacks. So I just basically am always requesting 1 train at a time, and if it ever fills up, then you know, I don't request any more trains. And now that I think about this, actually I thought about this while writing, that this is actually genius, and I could implement this to my other trains, which I just said was the saddest change because I'd have to add a bunch of stuff to it. Like, I mean, because it would reduce my throughput. I don't have to anymore. I just realized that if I want like 12k of an item and it's got a stack size of, or 1 train size of 5k, I could just request 4880 until I have like, I'll say like, oh, if I need 15k, then I need 4880, and it'll never overfill a train. And then I'll have 4880, and then I'll still need like 10,000, and then I'll just request another 4880. So this is pretty genius, and I will implement it. Probably 1 at a time though, as we see throughput issues. But that was my little train fixing spiel. Oh, and I actually died for the very first time at like 723.5 hours. So I mean, that was cool too. All right, guys. So this episode, we wanted to do finish the metallurgic prerequisites, which was going to be sand casting and then like salt and hot air. And instead, we got sand casting and a couple hours worth of debugging the rail system. And we're almost out of time, but I realized that there was another problem with the Bento Box Mark IV, and so I decided to fix that instead of ignoring it. And so it actually only took 15 minutes, which I'm quite happy about, but I'm going to try quickly explain what I did here before we roll off. So basically, the problem is that because we are no longer perfectly grabbing the same amount for every row, like there could be possible mismatches, and that's a pretty big problem. There's not an even amount in every column anymore, or every row. So what I need to do, or what I did end up doing, was I connected every row individually, so I have a count across each row. Then what I do is I attach that to a stack combinator, and the stack combinator rounds it down to tell me how many I have of each stack size. So basically I check if each stack size, it rounds it down, right? So then I check the stack size, and if that stack size is less than 20, then what I do is I basically gather all those and I put it into another decider combinator to say that if that number is greater than 0, then we get another stack combinator and multiply that by negative 100, which is the amount of items required in or the amount that's the size of a full train, and I add that to the input. What that basically does is if I cannot fill a single row, I basically artificially reduce the amount that I have in here by one full train's worth. That means I can only call a train here if I have enough space for a cargo wagon in each of the 5 spots. And I think that was pretty concise. So we're gonna leave it at that. This episode we did sand casting and we did a bunch of blabbing about the rail system. Next episode we will finish up the metallurgic prerequisites. Thank you to my patrons, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.